problem. And it is a global problem because it started from the credit crisis of 2008, which morphed into a sovereign debt crisis, and that's what we're facing right now. And one other angle I'd like to say, one of the reasons that this has happened is because society has changed. And like Professor Arouh has said, we've become the society of the Kyriakos and very materialistic. When I started working, I was shocked by the bond, even though I was a beneficial of the remuneration of Wall Street. I was shocked by the amount of bonuses that they made themselves. And one of the comments I used to make, my best friend from university was a doctor, and he would save lives, and we would play with computers, and we would make a lot more money than they would. And this has evolved. It evolved from trading bonds in the 90s to the internet bubble in the early 2000s, and the mortgage backed in 2008. And in Greece, it also took place. And our official party line here in Greece, the bankers say, oh, we're just victims of the crisis. We're not at fault. And I say that officially too, but yet Greek banks have failed too. They failed because they've overlent. They failed because the remuneration of the Greek bankers was similar to the people who were selling mortgage-backed securities in the US. They would, Greek private banks, they would lend to anyone who would walk in front of their office. And so yes, Greek banks have failed. And I'm not going to, and I'm not going to say that we're more virtuous, but yes, the society needs the type of banking that's more ethical, that's more community-like it is in the US, close to the people, and back to the roots. Banking as an intermediation between, as an allocator of capital, as opposed to creation of wealth for the people in banking. And yes, this crisis is hard to solve. I don't know what's going to happen. If I knew what's going to happen, I would be rich, like they say. If you, maybe yes, the euro disintegrates, like Professor Arouh said. Maybe not. We don't know what's going to happen. One other issue, one other point I'd like to make along those lines. One of the reasons that this is happening is that because we place so much value in meritocracy. And the problem with meritocracy is that it has the opposite implication. With meritocracy, if you're clever, if you work hard, if you try hard, you achieve the top, which is fine. The opposite corollary of that is that if you don't reach the top, if you don't have a position, if you're not a top politician or a top banker, then you're a loser. And that places too much stress on society. In the old days, it used to be fortune. And the word fortune, which also has two meanings. It has a meaning of luck, and it has also the meaning of wealth. And if we, and in today's values, we forget the element of luck, and we place too much emphasis on being successful and on the materialistic goods that we all have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Papadopoulos. Let me just point out something that crossed my mind as Mr. Papadopoulos was talking about ethical banking. I was hearing Adam Smith's bones rattling in his grave. Did you mean lack of competition, or did you mean really ethical banking?
I mean...
It's something perhaps that we can discuss later
well, there's in Western countries, there's also a lot of, the trend is also in Sharia banking because, not because of the Muslim law, but because of the ethical element in it. And it's, and I'm not saying that we should give out competition altogether, but I'm saying that banks should be allocators of capital for useful resources rather than trading mortgage-backed securities, government bonds, investment banking, and you see the trend worldwide in banking is for the for the distinction between risk-taking and capital allocation.
Real Bill's doctrine there, yes. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Papadopoulos. I'd like to call upon now Mr. Alexander Makrides, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Chryssafides S.A., a distribution company of industrial goods. Mr. Makrides holds a BA in Economics and Political Science from Yale College, a Juris Doctor from Yale Law School, and an MBA from Harvard Business School. Mr. Makrides.
Thank you.
Well, I'm very happy to be here, ladies and gentlemen. I think it would be foolhardy on my part to foresee the exact consequences of the upcoming restructuring of the Greek debt. And because as we know, God is in the details, and there are a lot of details which are yet unmentioned. As far as the various scenarios regarding Greece and the euro, I think my esteemed panelists will probably give you a better idea where we are and where we're going. Even so, I believe the Lehman affair has taught us that black swans actually do happen, and that the collateral damage of defaults are very difficult to estimate and predict. As such, a Greek exit from the euro may have unforeseen consequences not only for Greece, but for Portugal, Spain, Ireland, Italy, even France, and generally for the whole of Europe. A recent UBS study outlines in detail the high costs to Germany, for example, of a Greek-Euro divorce. Also, imagine if many of the southern European countries were to exit the euro. Imagine where the value of the euro would go relative to the other currencies. Imagine what it would do to German exports and competitiveness. So there are many, many factors that one has to take into account when talking about a euro-Greek divorce. The cost of the economic costs to the Eurozone of aiding Greece at present is certainly lower than the economic and political costs to Europe of a Greek exit. As such, I believe it is extremely unlikely that Greece and the euro will part ways. However, as Greeks, we must be extremely vigilant now that we have before us a Greek restructuring of its debt. We will probably have a recap of banks, and to the degree that European banks and other institutions internalize, after the haircut, some of the costs of a Greek exit, the implementation of the structural reforms that are required for Greece to regain competitiveness and growth now become even more important and urgent. I've been assigned the task of describing what the euro means for Greek businesses. So I will attempt to give you a perspective from that light. Let me begin by stating that the vast majority of Greek businesses believe that a return to the drachma would be catastrophic for a variety of factors. I think that Greek stakeholders, politicians, the media, businessmen, trade unions, and generally Greek elites have to do everything in their power to ensure that Greece remains a member of the Eurozone. So let me shatter the myth of the drachma. Let me be very specific what it would mean for the Greek business community. The ex-Prime Minister Simitis recently wrote an article, and he mentioned in his article that if Greece were to abandon the euro and return to the drachma, it would be at a conversion rate of 700 to 1,000 drachmas per euro. What does this mean? It means that Greek incomes, salaries, and pensions will in real terms decrease dramatically. It means that the purchasing power of the Greek consumer will decrease dramatically. It means that the sales and profits of many businesses which operate in Greece will decrease dramatically. It means that many of these businesses will go bankrupt. And when these businesses go bankrupt, the only thing that will happen is unemployment will go further up, and we'll have all the consequences of social unrest. It means, in addition, that as uncertainty goes up and consumer confidence goes down, businesses will not invest. It means that we'll go into a vicious circle which will have no end in the foreseeable future. To the degree that we have budget deficits and we return to the drachma, it also means that we will end up with very high inflation. Inflation, as you know, impedes growth. It leads to further devaluation. This is why it is so important, even at this stage, to have primary surpluses. And now let me stress something which is very important for businesses, which is the cost and availability of borrowing. Given the high inflation that we will experience if we leave the euro, given the fact that the ECB will not be around to assist Greek banks. By the way, for those who don't know, Greek banks receive assistance to about 100 billion euros in terms of liquidity. The cost of borrowing to Greek businesses will go up dramatically. Go back a little bit to the 80s when we had very high inflation. Remember what interest rates were. Remember how hard it was for businesses, even very good businesses who had something to offer to the marketplace, even exporters who were competitive in nature. Remember how hard it was for them to borrow. Also, never forget that if we exit the Eurozone, the rest of the Eurozone members will have very little incentives to help Greece in the form of additional structural funds. They will have no skin in the game. Greece will be alone. The very reason why we're talking about all these various haircuts is precisely because, which are assisted by the European Union or the Eurozone member, is precisely because we're a member of the Euro. Think of Hungary. Think of the type of assistance Hungary got when it had problems. Recently I was talking to a major multinational, which I will not name, and his perspective also was quite interesting. He mentioned that in the unlikely scenario of a Greek exit from the euro, his company would leave Greece because the currency risk for that particular company would be very high. Now, don't forget that multinationals translate their profits into foreign currencies. So the currency risk will be very high, political instability will be very high, and there will be a huge lack of demand, of domestic demand. We will also experience capital flight, further capital flight, draining our economy for very precious financial resources. A euro exit also has huge logistical problems associated with it. There's never been an exit from the euro. It is, from a practical perspective, time-consuming until you introduce a new currency. In that sort of time frame between the time you introduce a new currency, you will have a lot of instability and uncertainty. And a lot of trade will simply stop. There are also a lot of legal problems associated with a euro exit. At what conversion rate, for example, will local debt and deposit take place? You know, as an importer, I'm recently experiencing difficulty in getting credit. A lot of insurance companies, even now, before we even